Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 37 of the open mic. Everybody says, what's the open mic? Or so not everybody, but a lot of people. Well, it's our podcast to allow different subjects to get discussed with the Avery case, Dassey case, and other cases as well. It is an open format. We've taken subjects from really all over the Avery case, and we'll continue to do so. We've also taken on some other cases as well. We recently presented some information about Darley Routier. That's just one. I mean, there's going to be other. There's been others, and there will be others. Anyway, moving on. Today's discussion is going to be about the Bobby Dassey computer and the contents therein. Without saying, the people that have been around this know that, the Dassey computer, it encompasses a lot. And it's not just the contents of that computer. It's who had access, where it was located in the house. There's just so many things. And, there actually is a couple of DCI reports we'll be throwing up on the screen here in a bit. But first, I talked about a few weeks ago, and actually several open mics about this post, this one post. There's actually more than one that Temptedious created on Reddit. The one that I was referring to, I think he drafted in, I think it was November of 2019. Does that sound right, Temptedious?
Yeah, soon after season 2.
Right. And, through the various exhibits and so forth that Kathleen Zellner presented, he did an extremely detailed Reddit post that it gives. The thing is, there's a lot of misinformation that has been floated around. And I know that Temptedious is like so many of us. We do not want any misinformation out there. We want the truth. Because that's what really matters at the end of the day. We can drama things up one way or the other, but the truth is what really matters. And I made a mistake, as I've said long ago. I repeated something that was incorrect that I had been told, but the person that told me thought it was correct as well. But I repeated it. It wasn't anything too terrible, but I felt terrible about it, and I try never to do that. I try to find out for sure, if I'm stating something as a fact and not just what I think or a theory or whatever, to make sure to get that out there. So with that said, let's quickly go down our list here of people that are in the Discord chat with us. Anyone's welcome to come into our Discord and be a part of the conversation. So let's get everyone introduced right quick. Alice?
Hi everyone, thanks for coming.
Becca? Becca must not be here. BB?
Hey, everyone.
Linda, checking convictions.
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
And Disco's got her muffles on, so you're us, my friend.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to chat.
Mystic Jinx, come on.
Hey, people.
Sapper Cop.
Never forget 9/11. God bless the USA.
Well said. Sunshine Christina.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the open mic.
And of course, Temptedious is going to be our guest speaker today. And with that said, I'm going to start getting some stuff on the screen. Okay. Alrighty, it's going to pop in there just in a moment, and we'll get started with this first post. As I said, this is the driver for today's open mic. If there are questions, that people have in the chat, please put them in there, and we'll try to get those answered. We'll try to break at some point when Temptedious feels a break, and before we move on to the next section or whatever, we'll try to answer a few questions as we go. There's a lot of information I know that he wants to get out, so we'll answer as many as we can in the time we have. So anyway, Temptedious, welcome, sir.
Thank you. I think we'll start just by going over some theories and information that I didn't actually mention in the post so that everyone can have it kind of in mind as we're reviewing it. These are theories about the deletions on the computer of internet history records as well as photos. There's some theories about instant messages and about photos of women on the computer who Dahmer says resemble Teresa. So I have kind of three issues that I'm going to ask everyone to kind of just keep in the back of their head so that we can discuss everything at the end. So my first suspicion is that Bobby was using Brendan's MSN account to talk about his involvement in the crime, and that this discussion with Bobby was discovered by law enforcement, which falsely led them to believe that Brendan had something to do with the crime because they were not thinking that Bobby would have been using Brendan's account. And this caused a bit of confusion with the state, having recovered messages from the computer by Bobby on Brendan's account. Second is images of Teresa. I believe that it's possible that they might have found images of Teresa subjected to violent crimes on the computer. They were likely deleted or removed, and thereby removing the metadata. And that's possibly why Zellner has not felt comfortable saying, these are photos of Teresa. Until this point, she's just said, these photos bear an uncanny or striking resemblance to Teresa Halbach. We'll discuss that at some point. And then again, the third theory just kind of deals with the deletions and my suspicions about who was doing that and what they knew, if anything, about the computer when they were conducting the deletions. Okay, so with that said, we'll just go to the top of the post, I guess.
Hey, Temptedious, before you start, your first point there about Bobby using the Blaine and Brendan's MSN login, I'm sure that there is some documentation somewhere I read that, in fact, he did do that.
Yeah, we know he did, at least for a couple nights. He
Yeah.
talks to girls and
Yes.
pretends to be other people, and then he admits that he's Bobby. And then when he gets frustrated with girls who aren't entertaining his antics, he just says, well, I'm going to go check someone else's account. So we know that he was using other people's accounts. We don't know that he was talking about the murder on that account. That's my suspicion.
Right.
That I will hopefully try to explain adequately.
Okay.
But yeah, we do know that Bobby was using his own account, his own MSN account, and Blaine's and Brendan's.
Right. Okay. All right.
All right, and since we're kind of on that topic anyway, we'll just quickly review why Zellner says that Bobby, out of quite a few people, is the source of the computer content. So I identified a few people as reasonable sources of the computer's contents, including Bobby, Tom Janda, which was Barb's then husband, Brendan, Barb herself, and Blaine. I didn't suggest that Brad and Brian were reasonable sources for the computer's content because they didn't live at the salvage yard at the time, so I think we can pretty much rule them out completely. So first off, with Tom Janda, there's conflicting reports. Blaine says that he moved out early 2005, but Barb says he moved out mid-October 2005. So either way, he moved out before the murder. There's some searches that could be attributed to him prior to that date, but I will discuss why I don't believe that's the case. Brendan, he was in school during the day while most of the searches occurred, and they continued after his arrest. So that's a pretty good indicator that Brendan didn't really have anything to do with the computer content. And similarly, even though I don't think anyone really believes that Avery would have been sneaking into Bobby's room to look up those images, the same logic there applies. Not only did the searches continue after Brendan's arrest, they continued after Stephen's arrest. So
yeah,
there's another. Brad, again, he wasn't an option, although he has provided an affidavit saying that Barb wanted to delete information from the computer. One thing that is interesting is that he mentions that Peter Dassey was with him, and that is something that would come in crucial during a hearing, because if there was two people who testified that said, yes, Barb wanted to delete evidence off the computer, that would be pretty incriminating. Barb, she was at work when most of the searches were conducted. I don't think anyone really believes that Barb did the searches. Brian, again, wasn't at home. Brian also provided an affidavit just saying that Bobby lied about what he saw while Teresa was on the property. And he says that it was Barb, not Stephen, who first set up the appointment with Teresa. And then Blaine. Blaine is kind of, although he was in school during the day, he's, in my opinion, the only other reasonable alternative to account for these searches and images and messages. I believe it's Bobby, but if it's going to be anyone else, it would be Blaine. Okay, and although I didn't really mention it at this point in the post, I'm just going to note that because of Bobby's trial testimony, we know that he was home alone during weekdays from 6:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. And he testifies that it was common for him to be at home alone on weekdays, not weekends, weekdays.
Right.
And if anyone has any questions, directly related to what I'm saying, they can interrupt me. Otherwise I'll just keep going.
Well, I was just going to say that, these three, Bobby, Blaine, and Brendan, being brothers, basically living, and the other two, I discount them as well. And really the other ones is, I discount them as well. But those three being young, teenage kids, I could see a little bit of, hey, look what I found. Hey, did you guys see this? Blah, blah, blah. But as far as the bulk of these intense searches that we know are here, I'm with you. I think it was really one person doing it. That's me, though.
Yeah, I can see, especially with stuff like rotten.com. I mean, I never looked at it, but I remember when I was younger hearing people talk about it.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some of that stuff going on. And there does seem to be in that family, because they lived on a salvage yard, perhaps a more common discussions are among the family about bloody accidents. Like we know Earl seems to have had an exception with car crashes. Bobby searches for images of car crashes.
Right.
It's just interesting to see what the family dynamic is growing up in a salvage yard where they are maybe seeing wrecked cars and have to think about what happened to the people in those cars that might lead to other interests, I guess.
Right.
All right. Another thing that's kind of interesting is that the state doesn't really dispute in their response to Zellner in the Court of Appeals, which seems like ancient history now. But in that filing, the state did not dispute that Bobby Dassey was the source of this content. They accepted that he was, and argued that even if he was looking at torture porn, it doesn't matter. It's distasteful, they said, but it doesn't prove that he lied. Of course, they ignored all the evidence that proved that he lied, but just as a matter of fact, the state did not dispute that Bobby conducted these searches. All right, so now we're kind of getting to the searches. The first ones are not exactly crucial because not the May, but once we get to the August searches, that would be when school was out, right? So presumably everyone was home during the weekdays. But we can still talk about these searches a bit, I think. So there's a couple here that I'm not too concerned about. Rotten.com was accessed at the time when Bobby would have been home alone. This is in May again, before school was out. Not too concerned about that, to be honest. I start to get concerned when I start to see young 13-year-old girl nude is kind of the first one that caught my eye on Saturday, August 13th. And prior to that, there were searches for 15-year-old girl naked, but that didn't, I know that's weird because that's underage, but Bobby was only 19 or 18 at the time. That doesn't really concern me. What concerns me is when he starts going younger, 13, 12, 11. That is really unacceptable. There's no excuse for that.
Agreed.
So the searches for 13-year-old girl nude, preteen girl naked, which is obviously that 10, 11, 12 age range, very disturbing. So we start to see an odd, disturbing trend that kind of picked up in the middle of the summer. Right to the next day is an interesting day because there's not too many searches, but there is quite a few strange ones. So again, we have preteen naked teens, that's not terrible. Teen movies, not terrible. But this one, bad sex clips. which seems to suggest that someone was looking up or wanted to look up images of, sexually assaultive behavior, I think is a fair interpretation of bad sex clips. I'll bring that up again later, but just keep that bad sex clip in mind. And now also we're starting to see deleted internet history records that are popping up at or around the time Teresa would visit the property. So we're starting to see child porn, one search so far for bad sex clips, and then deleted history records, internet history records, which suggests that there's some additional internet activity. We're going to skip down now to September 18th.
Okay.
And this was a day where there was quite a few searches, the most up until this time in September. And there's plenty for pedophilia and child porn. There's also 2 searches that were misspelled, and they were for rape girls and rape little girls, and they were spelled as rap girls and rap little girls, rap little girls. Obviously that to me was a misspelling of rape little girls and rape girls. I don't think he was looking up images of rap girls, and I don't know how he would explain an image search for rap little girls.
Right. Agreed.
So those are interesting because the misspellings there suggest to me that someone searched the registry and removed the correct spellings of those searches, but didn't catch the misspellings. So it is a bit strange. The computer has thousands of images of women being tortured and raped, but these are the only searches for images of girls being raped, and they're misspelled. So that suggests to me that there were, like Zellner is right, that there's missing internet history records that probably connect to those thousands of images of torture and rape, which might explain why there's so little, prior to the murder on the computer. Stuff really starts to pick up after the murder.
Right.
Okay, can I interrupt here for a second?
Yeah, please.
We got kind of a debate in the chat that's that they think it could be planted. Somebody could have planted that stuff on the computer.
How would they plant it?
Well, they're saying they could switch that. Ken Kratz could have switched the hard drive. I don't know how Corey Zipper thinks so, and I don't know how Becca does, but she's on panel, so she might be able to tell you. I don't know.
To me, that seems a little bit too much, and just the information that we have on the computer is so specific that it's odd to think that it would be planted. And when I think about, the state trying to, I guess what they're saying is that they were trying to blackmail Bobby or manipulate Bobby into testifying. Why would they actually plant this stuff on the computer and document their misconduct? Why wouldn't they just threaten him and say, we will do this if you do not testify against Steve?
The motive is really the thing that would, to me, would preclude them trying to do a hard drive switch. That's not easy.
Not just that, but please explain to me how they created these chats. How did they get these people on the other end of the chats to play along with this charade?
That's another thing.
Yeah. We have to realize that if it was planted, then they put far worse stuff on it if they had the possibility to do so. Not like preteen rape, and there's bad stuff on it, but if you have the opportunity to plant it, you can make it far worse than this.
I agree.
And they took the time to have the misspellings of all of these words, because it's consistent in the search history that the spellings for what they are looking for is first misspelled because they're not the brightest kids, whoever it is searching. And then you'll see that the next one will be closer and the next one will be closer. If they were going to plan it, they just would have put the search they wanted on there. They wouldn't have made the attempt to make it look like he tried to find what he was looking for and first didn't know how to spell it.
Not only that, but please also tell me, how are you going to plant the IP address?
Why plant it, then hide it?
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense to plant it in my eyes. But
the motivation is really the key factor. Why would they do? I mean, this would be really difficult, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then they did it, remember? So, like, if they planted it, why would they have planted it just to hide it? I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
No,
Exactly.
it's
conspiracy.
They would essentially
Right.
Avery's.
it's about as believable as Colburn's story about the damn key.
Yeah. Corey Zipper saying, okay, guys, if it wasn't planted, who directed Bobby or Peter or whoever to do the searches would be the question. It comes right back to who was framing Avery.
They would have had it on
Well,
Avery's
why
computer,
couldn't?
they said.
Why couldn't Bobby or Pete or whoever or whatever, whoever it was that were doing the searches, just be doing the searches on their own? Why does somebody have to direct them to do the searches?
Yeah, I mean, come on. They were teenage boys.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
You're gonna get porn.
I mean, my son at 15 had porn on his mobile phone and was taking it into school and showing his pals. And then my dad phones me and says, your son's got porn on his phone, and I had to make him delete it because it was me that would get into trouble for it if the teachers or the school found out about it. You know what I mean? So teenage boys are going to try and look at that kind of stuff. I mean, maybe not as bad as what some of these searches are writing off, but young lads, no matter what age, are going to chance their luck and see if they can just have a wee quick sneaky peek.
Well, they're curious,
you know. Before the parents of that see them. Exactly, Jack. It's curiosity. But I must admit, some of these are
disturbing.
Yeah.
They're very disturbing.
I've said it. Go ahead.
We do have one comment from Angie Dickinson, and she said, "Is it me or can everyone hear Temptedious? Okay, everyone else, I can hear clearly." I think
Temptedious is a little low.
him clearly.
He's a little low on this end.
Yeah, I've got the volume turned all the way up. It may just be his mic. I'm not sure. Is there any way you can increase volume, Temptedious, a little bit?
You can try a different mic, but I think this is about as best I'm going to get.
Just get a little closer to it, maybe.
Yeah, just a little closer if you can, and that'll be okay. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I think that. Go ahead, Sepharkov.
I've said before, there's going to be a difference between a curious teenager looking up stuff and somebody who's disturbed looking up stuff. I've looked up porn when I was a kid. I even looked up rotten.com. But the consistency and the continuation of these searches is what's the key. It's almost, not daily, but it's happening so often and so frequently for over a long period of time. This goes beyond curiosity, and the types of searches that are being done also go way beyond curiosity.
100% agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. It becomes a habit.
It's very obsessive.
Yeah.
It's disturbing. I mean, the curiosity thing, I'm a guy, and Sapperkov and the rest of the guys, I get that, wanting the curiosity of a teenager. But this other stuff, it's like seeing a car wreck. You see it and you just keep driving. But this consistent of this really odd stuff, it's disturbing to me.
It's a difference.
I also thought about he looked at women specifically, right? Drowned women, injured women. What? You can have that kind of curiosity, but why not also look at men that way? Specifically that.
Can I ask you something about that? How often was he looking at tormented and tortured women prior to Brendan being arrested and that press conference coming out with all of those gory details about what happened to Teresa?
I mean, there's not too many searches for images of torture.
Oh, you're really far away, Temptedious.
Yeah, you got worse. If that's a new mic, that's a worse one.
He must have had to go out and come back in.
Yeah, he's going to go out and come back in probably.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fine. Well,
Yeah, it's kind of like the different, so yours talked about people looking at car wrecks. It'd be a different between driving by a car wreck, looking, and then keep going, and somebody driving by, stopping, getting out, taking pictures, doing that. That's the kind of difference we're talking about here.
that's right.
One is curiosity. One goes way beyond curiosity.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Can one be investigating his own brother's claims?
Well,
I know when I found out about this case, I looked up keywords like DNA, bones, maybe not drowning women, but maybe how a woman might cause so much blood to come out if she got hit in the head or shot. How much blood would be on the scene? After Ken Kratz's press conference where he says there's this bloody rape and murder, and they're talking about his own brother, could he be curious enough to look at that stuff to see if that's any of the evidence that he's seeing around his house? Because he's still on the property. He can walk over to the garage and see if there's blood everywhere. There was blood
Maybe.
coming down the stairs and all of that stuff.
Maybe. But, this other stuff, people can go look at these. I'm not going to repeat a lot of it, but, so far that in the topic, we've already covered a number of really sketchy stuff here. I mean, Sunday, September 18, 2005, and all these preteen naked 12-year-old sex. I mean, all this stuff is just like a normal teenager wouldn't do that, in my opinion.
And
Straight
you
up
gotta
sick.
remember,
It's
you gotta
sick.
remember that we don't have all the records. We only have what's left.
Okay,
So
yeah,
we're
there's
trying to analyze partial records. He very
Right.
well could have been looking at all of this stuff and the
Well,
state deleted that, or it didn't get retrieved.
well, we need to explain that. What we're seeing here is the results of the VLCD that Zellner was able to get in May of 2018. Finally, she got it. So there are other, there's another part of this where they took the computer back. If everyone remembers, the state went back to Barb and Scott and retook that computer and kept it for 5 months, right?
Yeah, that's what Anthony Howe's asking. Why did the cops take the computer again in 2017?
Well, that is the question, and we don't, Zellner has asked for
there he is.
the results of that second time that they took it, but she's never gotten it. Welcome back, Temptedious.
They really want to know about Tom Janda. Was he still living there? How come he wasn't investigated for this? Robin McDonald would like to know.
Well, a lot of those 13-year-old naked picture searches, in my memory from what we have at least seen, is before Janda actually filed for divorce from Barb. So, and I don't remember seeing any young teen lookups after that, after he moved out. So
we'll let Temptedious answer the history part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, there are more searches for. That's the most consistent thing is searches for child porn and pedophilia.
Okay. Well, I think that are there any more questions before we move on?
Done? Wait. When were those searches done? Were they all year round for the whole year that you have them? Was it only for September of 2005? Was it like September, October, November, December, January, February?
Yeah, we get
March,
it. We understand.
Because I know that there were some teen searches, but they're not being specific enough. You got to remember, these boys are teens. Even at 18, you're legal, but you're still considered a teen. So would a Bobby or somebody in 17 or 18 still look up teen boobies or teen naked girls? I mean, what classifies as, was it actual kiddie porn? Was he looking at 18-year-old girls naked? Because I don't really get the gist of that, and some of those searches just seem like it can't be really classified as like looking up a 13-year-old like they were in September of that year before.
Well, that is most consistent searches for child porn and pedophilia, and I'm looking at one right now from February where he's looking for younger girls, younger than 12, baby girl naked.
Preteen was a...
But yeah, it's not just in September, that's for sure.
Okay, I just was curious.
So was Tom Janda living there or not?
Not in February of 06.
Okay.
No.
All right, thank you.
And I did see a few people wondering about, but again, I don't know if he would sneak into Bobby's room to look up such depraved images. If he had such an obsession, he could afford to get a computer for himself and keep it in his room. I don't think that Barb or Tom would be using a computer in one of their kids' room to look up such disturbing stuff.
I agree.
I agree. Okay, I'll stop for we pause it here on around September 8, 2005. But if you want to move on, I can.
Yeah, that's Teresa came to the property the day after that someone was looking for images of girls being raped. I have to imagine that those searches were included by Zellner because they were important to her, even though they're weekend searches when everyone else was home. They can be connected to Bobby because they started soon after he got off work, finished and started up again soon before he would have left for work that night. So even though they're weekend searches, I do feel that they can be connected reasonably to Bobby. And I don't think it's exactly insignificant to consider that someone was searching for images of girls being raped the day before Teresa showed up.
Okay.
So we're moving on.
And I think in further support of that, we'd also have to remember everybody has different tastes. Everybody has different proclivities, different ways of doing things. The fact that the searches were all for basically the same idea, the same theme, would lend credence to the fact that it's the same person doing the searches. So say, for instance, somebody wanted to make the argument that it was Blaine or Brian or somebody. I think the searches would be different. They would be searched for differently. The terms would be different, but that's not what's happening here. It's the same theme over and over and over again.
That's right.
Yeah, especially with that child porn, pedophilia, that stuff comes up a lot, and it does. There is a little break. We'll talk about that soon, but there is a little break in the searches that are interesting. I think we can skip pretty much. There's one interesting search on October 22nd. And I say it's interesting because normally most of the information that we have access to is from Google searches, where Bobby or whoever turned the safe search filter off. Now, I don't think Google, even with the safe search filter turned off, would actually return images of child porn torture. Still not sure exactly where these photos are coming from, but on October 22nd, there's not a search term, but just a piece of internet history where someone visited hotdate.com and it was a day that had missing internet history records, which might suggest there was additional activity. I know that Teresa was kind of on dating websites, so that's kind of why I included that. I don't think there's any kind of connection. I just thought it was hotdate.com showed up.
Yeah.
Do we have any proof that Teresa was on any dating websites? Because I know there was supposedly some guy who talked to her on a Yahoo chat, but Yahoo chat was not necessarily a dating website.
No, and that he's from the castle, right?
Mark Harried, yeah.
Yeah, I do remember. Maybe it was just in her journal that I'm thinking of. Teresa was clearly looking for love.
Yeah.
She was looking for her soulmate, and she was hoping God would send her soulmate, but it doesn't say that she was on Match.com or HotDate.com or any of those things, and you don't see any of those emails or anything in her computer.
One thing though, back then you used to be able to set MySpace up to be a dating website even. MySpace had a feature where you could set it up to be a dating site.
And also just back then, there were different rooms that you could chat rooms that you could go into in Yahoo, you know, that were set up that way, like looking for love or, you know.
I think it was just a general Wisconsin resident type of site for
Okay.
Yahoo chats. I think it is said in the report.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't remember anything specific. Maybe Temptedious does about Teresa visiting a dating website, but you know.
I was trying to say that there was a piece of paper found in Avery's vehicle that I don't know, it doesn't seem like it was there. It could have been planted, I don't know, but it's from a dating type website, they say. They don't include any of the information about the person whose profile they printed out. You can tell that it's a page from a dating website that someone had printed out because you can see kind of a profile picture and a bunch of information that they list, you know, that you want everyone to know about you, whatever. I found that interesting because there was a message scribbled on the back of it saying, "Can you give me your number?" Big enough for someone to read, you know, from a vehicle. And I one thing that Seven Pairs of Panties used to say was that there was one of Teresa's friends talked about going on a road trip with her and holding up such a sign to people that were driving by. I found that to be an odd coincidence, but again,
it is.
Yeah, just an observation, but definitely an odd coincidence.
Okay.
Well, and going again to something that may lend some credence to that is, remember that KZ made a big deal about the fact that somebody replied to Teresa and not by phone on that day. So could it have been a response on a dating site or something of that nature? You know, that's a possibility.
Yeah, I like that theory.
Don't you think if she had that evidence that when to go to show Bobby as a Denny, she would have used it in this last filing?
I would have hoped. I would hope so.
It?
Yeah, she did say she did say that there was non-telephonic communication, but I want to see it.
Yeah, there's some things like. That's a valid point. I have, from my understanding, is that she would be holding back some stuff to present at a hearing. So she would, you know, it's not supposed to be fucking impossible to get a hearing like it has been.
Right.
So she shouldn't need to put everything that she has in her motions, and I'm sure she didn't. But it's difficult to believe that she would leave something like that out when there's a bit of a tenuous connection between Bobby and Teresa. There's bones in her barrel, which is as good a connection as any other, but I have to agree that I would suspect Zellner, if it was solid, it might be because it's based on deleted records, right? And sometimes deleted records have the metadata removed, and so we can't tell exactly what happened.
Right.
An interesting discussion, because Zellner did say that there was contact between Bobby and Teresa that day.
No, and it could also be because whatever she has, if it was something done online, it would be, you know, obviously without being able to question somebody or do further investigation, you wouldn't be able to necessarily prove the source of it. You would just be able to prove that it came from, you know, computer A, not necessarily who did it. So that could be a thought.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, if he did contact her through a dating site or some other communication that was not her telephone, how exactly did Bobby get her email address or her dating site? And then if he was on a dating site, how did it come to be that he started talking to this woman who actually does the photos at his place? I mean, that seems all very coincidental, no? That all of a sudden he's meeting somebody on a dating line that just happens to be the photographer for the, and most likely, I mean, who goes on a dating site and says Teresa Hallback? It was probably like, would it be like Teresa's Photography or Teresa H? I mean, she didn't have a Teresa. I don't think it was called Teresa Hallback on her Yahoo. I think it was Teresa's Photography or something like that.
I thought it was like photos by Teresa or something.
By Teresa. Yeah, that could be too. Yeah, something like that. That didn't have her last name. So if he's contacting her, how does he know to contact her on this other avenue other than the phone? At that point, if the message supposedly on Janda's message only says her phone number, it's not like, oh, email me if you can.
We have no way of knowing. We just have no way of knowing.
Yeah, it could have been as
Yeah.
easy as seeing her picture on MySpace and sparking up a conversation, you know?
Yeah.
And he just so happens to pick the woman that comes out, or did he
Well-
actively look for her after she came out once or twice, or
Yeah.
They
or
almost
like
think that
how
he
does
was
that
actively-
happen?
We're hypothesizing on that, but I
Yeah.
mean,
Of course we are.
it could have been done. And we don't know it wasn't. We don't know it was. You know?
Yeah, but it could also be something as easy as if she has been on this sort of website or anything like that, and he's been looking through it or whatever, and he's like, oh, that's the woman that comes to take photos of I've seen her before, that's the one that comes to take photos, and might have wanted to start a conversation. As you say, we're just speculating at that because we've not got a clue how that would have came about.
No idea.
That means that he then found a woman that he knows comes to his place of work for photos for not just Avery but for his stepfather too, because Janda had his own cars pictured.
Yep.
So he's now going to bring somebody there to kill this person because he's got this fantasy about killing someone with this child porn all on his back that he targets somebody now older than him that comes to his yard to kill. I mean, that's not very
So
smart, is it?
You're making an assumption that the intent was to kill initially. I don't think that was actually the case. I think what happened to Teresa was I'll call it a split second decision. It just happened. It wasn't meant to be that way. It was probably meant to be something else, and
It went
something else
sideways.
happened.
Went sideways.
Yeah. So we have two pieces of information that we know for a fact. We know that Teresa
Well,
contacted.
you're saying that he's looking up rape and torture before she even comes there. So if that's like on his mind, wouldn't that be something that, how can you say it's just happened? Obviously, that's something that's on his mind that he's looking into on computer searches. So it wouldn't have been just spur of the moment, would it?
We don't know.
He intended on doing
You
some
don't
kind
know
of
that.
harm, rather be
We
rape
just
or
we
murder,
don't.
right?
Yeah,
Obsessing and
we don't know.
fantasizing over torture porn and acting
We're-
it out
we're-
are two separate
Yeah.
things.
Different thing.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
mean, so we have two pieces of info that we know for sure. We know that Teresa contacted the Janda house and that somebody responded to her. So we know somebody from the Janda residence responded, and they responded non-telephonically. So that we
don't
know those two
that.
things
In
for
my
sure.
opinion, I can't say that for a fact just because Zellner said so. Because if you look at it, Zellner also said Ryan was the one with the day planner. Then she turned around and said that it was Scott who had the day planner. So she was obviously wrong about something. So just because Zellner says so doesn't make it fact
Well,
in my
we
book.
just
I'm
we,
sorry,
we,
Zellner,
we
but
just
it
know
just says so.
we just know that she said it. But anyway, let's move on. We're off on the way into another tangent here. Anyway, go ahead, Temptedious.
All right. First day of murder. Bobby was not sleeping from 6:30 a.m. until 2:30 p.m. The computer connected over and over. Avery's phone records reveal that he called Bobby twice that morning and spoke to him. And Avery told this to police, so they were on notice that Bobby was probably lying when he said he was sleeping all day, leading up to Teresa's arrival. They had reason to suspect, but they didn't really try to pin down what the truth was, which is another example of poor investigative practices. Zellner's expert says when you have two witnesses that give you conflicting stories, but you do not try to resolve those discrepancies, that indicates an investigative failure. And then, of course, months later, when they discovered the computer content and realized that someone was online all day in Bobby's room, and he said he was home alone, they realized that even Avery was correct and that Bobby was the one who was lying, and that I'm sure played into their decision to suppress the computer. They couldn't have the computer corroborating what Steven said. That would be terrible.
Yeah.
So there are some searches on this day. They're nothing special. Again, the 15-year-old girl naked doesn't really bother me. I don't like the search for stupid sluts because it seems to indicate a desire to maybe degrade women. I don't know. I just can't think. Has anyone ever searched for stupid sluts when they're looking up porn?
Never. No way.
Very odd. Just
No.
a strange usage of terms.
I don't know, the music that they were listening to, and then his like nigger for life type of email address doesn't sound like they are very like. Of course, they would degrade women, in my opinion. So I don't know.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying, is that stupid sluts is just not totally innocuous. There's something strange about that search. And again, on this day, there's missing internet history records that suggest that either additional searches occurred, or Bobby was online sending a text to Teresa or on a dating website, whatever. Something else happened on the computer that day that we don't know about because someone deleted their search activity.
It's interesting that there's missing records there on the 31st. Very interesting.
Yeah, on the murder, and no one investigated it.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Susan.
And I haven't had a chance to go over this yet. And I just remember back when this first came out, I remember seeing that there were searches on a lot of days starting at like 6 a.m. But Bobby worked until 6 a.m. Isn't that correct? So he wouldn't be home until 6:15, 6:20, something like that.
Well, those searches aren't actually specific timestamps. Zellner identifies about 600 searches that occurred between 6 a.m. and 3:45 p.m., which is Bobby would have been home around then, and everyone would have been getting home from school around 3:45. So whenever I identify a search as happening between 6 a.m. or 3:45 p.m., we don't exactly know what time that search occurred, but we do know, at least Zellner has told us, that those searches, those 600 or so searches, occurred between that time frame.
Okay, I thought I remembered there being specific timestamps, but it's been a long time ago, so.
Yeah, so some there are. Like, for instance, we talk about September 18th. Those are searches that Zellner's expert found. So for those, we do have very specific timestamps. And they do, pick up right at 6 a.m. when Bobby roughly would have been getting home, and pick up again just before 10, right before he would have been leaving for work. So you ask a good point about, some people, my sister works the night shift, and sometimes they'll just get to go home early if it's not busy.
Yeah.
So it could just be that he's getting home 20 minutes, half an hour early.
Yeah,
if there
okay.
are, that might explain. Like, I'm just, spitballing. But... Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if I really want to talk about the missing internet history records from November 4th to the 13th, because it seems to always go off the rails. But originally, I suspected that meant someone, be it law enforcement or Bobby, was active on the computer during the week that apparently no one touched it. I mean, if there's deleted internet history records from those days, I just don't understand. That's something that I believe Zellner would have exposed at a hearing. Something there that she's hinting at about these deleted internet history records from November 4th to November 13th.
And that's the time frame. Just remember, that's the time frame that law enforcement had the property under seizure.
Yeah.
Yeah, under seizure.
Yeah.
And they say they did not search the computer at that time. I mean, I can't imagine that law enforcement would have been. Maybe they would have checked out the computer, but would they have been using the internet and then deleting internet history records of their time on the internet? I don't know. I feel like it's more likely, if anyone, if someone was sneaking back into the house to look up how to remove DNA from concrete, stuff like that.
It's possible, yeah.
Okay, so November 7th, they find the burial site. I've theorized that they probably found Teresa's body at this burial site, and that it was obvious to them that she had been subjected to torture, some kind of violent crime. Because immediately after, a couple hours after finding the burial site, Riegert finally decides to seize Avery's computer and look for images of torture. Also decides to look at Avery's person and Bobby's person, scratches, bruises, and bite marks. Immediately after finding the burial site, they start looking for images of torture and evidence of violent crimes and defensive wounds. And that screams to me, that says to me that they found something at the burial site.
Oh, I think they did. The Cuss Road, absolutely. That was a crime scene if there ever was one in this case. They treated it as a crime scene as well.
Yeah, more so
Yeah,
than they
I could-
treated the burn pit as a crime scene.
Yeah.
One thing I do say that they use garbage bags during the recovery process. Some people have asked me where I got that from because they don't actually mention that during the trial. But during the preliminary hearing, Sturdivant, I believe, DCI.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think so. Go ahead.
Yeah, he admits that they used garbage bags after they were done with the sifting equipment to collect everything. They use garbage bags
Right.
to deposit what he calls, he identifies Teresa's bones as it. So he says we put it in garbage bags. I found that a disrespectful snippet.
Oh yeah.
Okay, November 12th is an interesting day because, and this is featured in Making a Murderer Season 2 as well, when they're doing the final walkthrough, which I think was just released actually, the OIA. When they're doing the final walkthrough, we can hear an officer questioning whether or not someone examined Bobby's computer. Well, we should take that computer and examine it. So I don't believe they did at that time. And that seems to, a statement by that officer seems to support that. They did not at that time look at Bobby's computer. They were only interested in Steven's computer, Steven's garage.
Do you remember which episode that was? I'd like to re-listen to that.
It would be, so they start, in Season 2, they start talking about the computer contents, I think, 7 and 8. Would probably be in there.
Okay.
Definitely one of the later episodes.
I'll check it out.
All right, so yeah, those deleted internet history records, there's not much we can say about them because all we know is that they reveal an attempt by someone to obscure their internet search history. I know I theorize that, they're related to the thousands and thousands of images of torture and that someone was, concerned about what was going to be found on the computer before the murder. But that's just speculation. We really don't know. We really need a hearing to get to the bottom of those deletions. So I usually identify deletions as 3 categories. There's first, the deletions of internet history records. Second, the deletions of photos. And those two different deletions happened in 2005 or 2006. And then after Zellner got the computer, she discovered that there was a massive deletion. So probably a clean wipe happened when the state most recently had the computer, I would expect. But for this post, the missing internet search history records are important, but we just don't exactly know why.
Right.
Okay, so February 13th, this is where we're starting to get into some very odd searches, as well as our first example of instant messages. For some reason, Zellner didn't include any instant messages from prior to the murder, just after. So I think we'll skip those searches. They're not necessarily too relevant.
Okay.
The first day for February 16th that we have MSN instant messages, I included the first little bit here because at first, Bobby is trying to make this girl guess who she is talking to. And eventually, he does something that, without saying his name, reveals to this girl that it's Bobby. And she says, okay, you can stop what you're doing, Bobby. It's not cute anymore.
Now, it's also, isn't it, during this time frame, he had his webcam going?
There's a couple conversations where you can kind of tell that they're talking over webcam, but I'm just not positive this is one of those.
I understand.
But if he did have his webcam on, probably wouldn't be guessing who she was talking to. Or unless he had covered it up for the time being.
I'll see.
I found it weird how he's telling girls that he's very picky and that he's hard to please and you wouldn't understand. That kind of sounds like something that maybe a murderer might say.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah, just a little bit odd. And then again, another thing that a murderer might say is that he roams the streets at night. Proudly says that to girls. He's like a bat. He likes to stay up all night.
Yeah.
Roams the streets. just odd. It just goes towards that image of Bobby as a criminal. Okay, and then
Well, just think about everybody's favorite movie trilogy and book trilogy, 50 Shades. Christian Grey is kind of tells the female character the same thing. You just wouldn't understand my tastes.
What did he say about staying up all night?
He says here in the 11:45 p.m. message, it's down here, I'm like a bat. I like to stay up all night.
But he did stay up all night because he worked the third shift.
Yeah,
So that
I
was
know.
basically his hours. So,
Yeah.
I mean, is that really weird or not?
Yeah. Well, he also says I roam the street.
He's not working at this day, and I find it weird. I mean, I just find it weird, him saying that he roams the streets at night. He's picky, hard to please.
Yeah.
All those things kind of go towards a profile of potential murderer.
Yep. Definitely out there.
I'm going down for murder.
That's okay. Some people are not owls and not that strange, but Anyway.
Somebody get Jinxie's computer.
You know what I always say? Things that will be seen. You know what I always say? Things that will be seen later at my trial.
Right.
But you don't roam the streets at night, Jinxie.
Not on these streets, but maybe
No.
on the suburbs.
Or on the online highway.
Okay. I'm at February 19th, February 20th time frame. There's some more searches, it looks like.
Yeah, that's right. So on February 20th, we're kind of getting into a bestiality and knife go through skin. That one was searched a couple times differently. And so that's kind of the first example of really sadistic searches. And then following that, the next day, there's gun to head.
Gun to head.
By the way, these are all images now that if we're talking about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, these are the searches that Zellner identified as happening when Bobby was home alone. Although sometimes we don't have exact times, I've noted when we do. And again, so there's searches on Tuesday, February 21st for gun to head. That one was searched over and over, which suggests to me that he's probably searched for the image gun to head and then went to, the next page again and again, which would resend that request and probably show up on a forensic examination as different searches. But I probably think that's what's happening.
Right.
He searched for gun to head once, but then just looked at, kept on going to the next page to look at more and more images. And then the same thing again with car accidents. He searches for car accidents over and over, but I think it's, again, probably just because he's going to different pages. And again, these are searches that were discussed a bit. He's looking for seen bones, hot girls, skinny hot girls. I agree that when he's looking for seen bones, hot girls, that's probably about him looking for, that's an odd way to put it, but it's probably about him looking for images of skinny girls.
Yeah.
Bobby tells police Teresa was skinny, so that's something that can be a connection. But there's also, even though this instance when he's looking for seen bones, hot girls, maybe he's not looking at bones right here. There are other times when he does search specifically for skeletons and images of dead or decayed bodies.
Right.
But I just remember when I posted that, someone was saying seen bones, hot girls combined with the skinny hot girls seems to suggest that he was really just looking for images of skinny girls.
Right.
Now, I don't know, maybe someone can speak to this, but was Bobby laid off in February? Does anyone know that? I know that's kind of a hard thing to learn about.
I'm going to say it seems like I remember reading somewhere that he was, but I don't know that for a fact.
I would just like to know the circumstances around that, if at all possible, because someone does, and they identify themselves as Bobby, and this girl who I identify as Jane, kind of a Jane Doe, because I don't want to give out her name, she notices that it's too late and that Bobby should be at work. And she says, "Shouldn't you be at work?" And he says, "No, I've been laid off. It's a week." And then this is the girl. Bobby sends this girl a pic of his dog. You know, the dog that apparently
Right.
scratched his back.
Yeah.
And the girl looks at the picture and says to Bobby, "That's a picture of a dog off of Google." And of course, we know that Bobby loves to use Google image search. I just don't understand why he'd be sending pictures of, you know, why would he be lying about dogs? Why would you just take the picture offline and send it to someone?
Should we also note, wasn't it February 27th that Blaine and Barb and Brendan were at Fox Hills?
Yeah, so that would, because these February 27th messages are at, like, you know, 2:45 a.m. So later that day, yes, Brendan is taken out of class, interviewed, taken to the police station, interviewed, taken to Fox Hills, and interviewed. And the only one at home that night was Bobby Dassey.
Yeah.
And he was on the computer on MSN. He was doing some searches for younger girls, younger than 12, bent over young girls, teens spread wide open, deceased or diseased girls, probably deceased, and baby girl naked on that day. And this is also the day when he started to really troll women, calling them baby and shit face and "can't you handle me?" Like, very, very over the top stuff.
Right. Really derogatory.
Nan's Life has a comment that says Bobby had his arm casted at some point. Would it affected his work and maybe be off temporarily?
During the
No,
trial, during the trial he did, because there's a shot with him, right? At some point during the trial process.
There are
Yeah, the
other
cast.
photos. There are other photos that I've seen. A couple of different time frames. He had a cast on that right wrist arm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I also read somewhere that one of the places Bobby was working, the factory shut down and the business was sold to someplace in Mexico. Does anybody else remember that?
That was
I
later.
remember that.
I think that was later.
Yeah, that was later.
That was later as well?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so that wasn't during this period.
I don't think so.
Yeah. I don't know why he was laid off. That's funny that that's never, questioned or answered in this investigation either.
I don't know.
Okay. I'm pretty sure everyone knows that this night, February 27th, when Bobby was home alone using Brendan's MSN account, was when he requested that a young girl come to meet him. And this was at 10 p.m. exactly. And he asked that this girl meet him at a warehouse so that they can play a game, and he would be that guy on Saw.
Yeah.
Saw is a horror movie about a killer, or he's not a killer, I guess. He's just a psychopath that forces his victims to kill or mutilate themselves. I don't understand how that did not make it into Fassbender's report. He mentions messages from February 28th, somehow missed the messages from Bobby on February 27th about meeting young girls at a warehouse to possibly play sadistic games.
Very sadistic.
All right, so at this point, we're kind of getting to Brendan's arrest. They take him into custody, charge him with everything under the sun, really: murder, mutilation, false imprisonment, kidnapping, sexual assault. And I do believe, I think it was Jinx who were asked about whether there were searches for torture prior to this press conference. And I think that's a valid question because there's a couple weird things that happen after this press conference. One of them is that people around town start talking about rumors of images being shared of Teresa being tied to a bed. And so, of course, Fassbender and Leader go investigate this claim. But the kid, at least from the report that Leader wrote, it appears very confused and conflicted and goes back and forth. And then he just drops it and said, "I made the whole thing up. No images of Teresa. I made it all up." That could be true, because it did happen about a week or two after the press conference, and maybe the press conference obviously was a big deal around town, and it could have, even though Kratz said, don't let your kids listen to this press conference, obviously some did.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about that, if whether or not that kid did see something, images of Teresa somehow shown by a friend or something, or if he's just making up stuff based on Kratz's press conference.
Right.
That's not in the post, by the way, that's just something like. Now we're coming up to end of March, and we're starting, the searches at this point start to pick up in number dramatically up until April 19th or April 21st, sorry, which is the day that the computer was seized. But right at the end of March, we see a bunch of searches for little pussies, smallest pussy in the world, more bestiality. I don't see, and then we get to there's a search for skeletons. And then we get to odd searches for girl hurts, girl hurting, girl groaning, girl grown face, which is another, like, obviously he's looking for images of women in pain. That's what Zellner says. But it's strange to me that there's no specific searches for, including the word torture or rape. So again, this is another thing that, because those are such specific, random terms that if someone was deleting search history, they might not think to look for the term girl action hurt, girl hurting, girl groaning. They might think to look for images of girls being raped or tortured, because those are more
right
that you might find. I just find it odd that there's obviously searches for images of women in pain, but there's no specific searches using the word torture. And we know, even though there's no searches for torture, there's thousands of images of torture. They had to come from somewhere. I'm just trying to work it out.
Make the connection.
Yeah, I mean, I have to assume that they are images that he viewed online somehow. Like, I don't know where you would go to find those images, but I mean, I don't think Bobby is responsible for himself taking those images off, is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And again, these are searches that can be connected to Bobby. So that was a Wednesday. So when he's looking for images of girls, those are searches that can be connected to Bobby. So we're going to skip down to April 9th.
Okay. April 9th.
This is an interesting day. There wasn't a whole lot of searches, and what there was just a lot of repetition. So there's a lot of searches for fist fucking, fisting, and there are searches, or there is an image on the computer that day of a woman being restrained and fisted by two men. And we don't have to click on the photo, but from my examination of that photo, it's clear that this woman is being non-consensually restrained, and that this is not a sex act that he wanted to do. So again, like some of the guilters have brought up, like, what is the big deal about Bobby looking up images of fisting? Maybe it's nothing, but when taken together with everything else on the computer, it's reasonable to suspect that when he's looking up images, he's not looking for specifically images of women who are forced into that sex.
Restrained. Had no choice.
The cumulative effect of it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I was going to say that's the guilter's favorite tactic, is to try to take everything piecemeal. Oh, well, this search isn't bad because anybody could do this, and then this search. But again, when you take it all, like you just said, as a accumulation, that's where you can paint the picture.
Big time.
Yeah, I agree. And like, again, I agree that it's not terrible to search for images of women being fisted, but when you start to move into the non-consensual aspect of that, that's terrible. That absolutely qualifies as sexual torture if you're not into that kind of thing. Another thing that was odd about the April 9th searches is that there's no searches on April 9th for drowned girls, but there is an image from that day of a drowned girl on the computer. We don't know if there's any deletions of internet history records in 2006. We only know about deletions in 2005.
Sounds like something was deleted.
yeah, something's going on. There's an image of a drowned girl on the computer from that day, but no searches for drowned women.
Interesting.
All right, and then Sunday, April 16th is another instance where he's looking up car accidents over and over, and he gets specific at one point and looks for a Ford Tempo car accident. There was a couple wrecked Ford Tempos at the salvage yard. So, like, I mean, I don't know. It's a bit strange because he's probably looking up images of disfigured bodies if they've been in accidents, but it's not something that really bothers me.
Right.
However, there's this one search that was misspelled, but I am not positive what he was going for, but I do think that NOS, sex, was
Nose.
actually supposed to be noose, not nose, but noose sex. And he
Right.
didn't know how to spell noose.
Hmm.
Because we know that although there's no searches for images of women being restrained with ligatures, Zellner has revealed that there are images of that. And a noose is basically a ligature, around your neck while you
Right.
achieve some kind of orgasm. But again, the noose sex could also be non-consensual iteration of it. On April 18th, 2006, we get our one and only search for gay porn and guys naked. One time I considered that maybe someone was looking up gay porn and that is what motivated these deletions of searches. That was me trying to explain everything away innocently, right? Is there a possible way you can explain away these searches without discriminating activity? It's just a thought. I don't think it only popped up on one time. I don't think it has anything to do.
Right.
And then one of the most crucial days, April 19th, and hundreds of searches took place. And this is just 2 days before the computer is seized. We start to see more evidence of obsession with dead bodies and women in pain, although there's no searches for groaning girls. He uses instead stretching pussy toys and extreme stretching, stuff like that. So, and again, and an interesting thing about this day is that now there are searches on this day for drowned girls. There's searches and images. The first image there, again, I don't think we should maybe click on because it's so graphic. Is
Bad.
Picture of
Yeah.
a woman. Yeah, it's very obviously a picture of a close-up of a woman as she's being tortured or beaten or whatever. I think about her a lot, about what she went through, or if her torturer, presumably if her killer was brought to justice. I don't know anything about her except for that she went through hell before presumably meeting her end. My point is that there's this gruesome image of torture on the computer, but none of those searches really correspond to that image. The quote, like he was looking up stretching pussy toys. I can't imagine that search would return such a gross image of someone being restrained, bloodied, tortured. So again, this is another thing that kind of confuses me about where these images came from, if
Right.
not from all these Google searches. I don't think that you would return images of torture from Google. Just a mystery that would be nice to get resolved at a hearing. Where exactly these images of torture came from, if not from Bobby's searching.
Right.
And then finally, we come to the day that the DOJ seized the computer, April 21st. There was a bunch of, I think over 100 on this day as well, indicating that the computer activity was increasing every day. So they seized the computer. So there's some odd searches, again, extreme anal toys, preteen models. I guess preteen models isn't bad, but just because we know what else he looked at, comes off as odd.
So clearly these were done prior to, I don't know what time they served the search warrant. I guess I'd have to look, but
Just in the afternoon, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was around 2 or 3. They seized the computer.
Okay.
And again, there's searches for drowned girls, free animal sex clips, preteen and teen sex, and then that day, I guess if you want to, Jack, you can switch to the DCI Report of their seizure of the computer.
Yep. Let me get back over here. I'll have to take this one down, and I'll pull the other one up.
One of the reasons I thought, I think everyone knows about this report. They go to find the computer. Barb isn't home. Scott contacts her. She comes home in a hurry. In fact, in her notes that she's speeding up to her house, getting to a stop, expresses her discomfort or displeasure with the fact that they're here to take her computer, and immediately goes into the house and starts ripping cords out of the wall. Maybe Barb was naive enough to think that if you just pulled the cord out, something would happen with the data on the computer. I have no idea what her intentions were there. But it's very clear that she did not want them to take that fucking computer because she knew something was going to implicate someone. And another interesting thing about this report is that right when Barb goes in and starts tearing crap out of the wall, Fassbender tells her to stop. And then after that, Blaine too says, "Mom, just give them the computer," which I think anyway supports the theory that this computer activity is not to do with Blaine. Blaine was the one that was saying, "Yes, please, for the love of God, you're acting crazy. Just give them the computer." This content was due to him. I think he would have just kept his mouth shut.
Yeah, this is DCI Report 304. For anyone, I'll link it. I don't think I added it, but I will add it to the description.
And this is something that we didn't have at the time I wrote the post. I'm not even sure.
Oh wait, I'm on the wrong one. I apologize. It's 273. My bad. The 304 is Fassbender's report of what was on the computer.
Yeah.
It's 273 is the correct one.
So 273, yeah, the one where Barb starts freaking out about Fassbender seizing the computer.
Yes.
That is incredibly significant to me, and it's one of these things that makes me wonder exactly what report Zellner has access to, because she has not once mentioned this report. And she's alleging that Barb deleted material evidence off the computer. She uses Brad's affidavit to support that, and her expert affidavit to support that. But not once does she include this Fassbender report that indicates Barb was panicking. They came to take the computer, which I believe would have supported, an argument that Barb deleted content off the computer. It's just interesting. I know there have been some reports with Halkins on there. Curious if she has this one, to be honest.
Well, I've talked about before, not to interrupt your presentation. I've talked about before, for Barb, it doesn't matter how you look at it. She was screwed no matter what she did. She's trying to protect her family, all of her kids. Can't really say so much about Brad and Brian because they weren't there, but the boys that were in the house. I'm sure that for her intent was to protect them, and no matter what she did, she was screwed. And I'm not justifying her actions. I'm just saying that's what it was.
Yeah, one of the things that occurs to me is she clearly knew there was something wrong with the computer, whether she knew exactly what was on it or had a really good idea of what could possibly be on it. So then the question becomes is, she's obviously known about this for a while. Now, how long that is, I don't know. I can only speculate on that. But she's known about this for a while. But even though she's known, the searches continued. So what does that tell you?
It tells me she couldn't get it stopped if she said anything.
Yeah, there's a definite parenting issue. Maybe she just didn't care until it was time to get caught.
Well, she probably, I'm just going to, it would be a guess anything that I would say, but if she knew one or more of the kids were looking up stuff that they really shouldn't be, because this stuff is like way the hell out there. And she's saying you need to cut it the hell out instead of taking, and she may even use the computer for this, that, and another thing, a little bit of this, because clearly she worked, but get rid of the damn thing, whatever it takes to get it stopped. So anyway, 273. Where do you want me to go to next, Tim? You go back to the Reddit post? Okay. And for everyone, I'll get these linked in the description. So anyone wants to pull them up, look at them. Okay.
All right. So they seized the computer April 21st, and then 20 days later, May 13th, Fassbender finally gets the VLE CD. And he would have discovered all of the images of torture, all of those instant messages, everything, basically. He probably knows more than we know about it. And after learning about the content on the computer, they go to talk to Brendan. And among other things, they ask Brendan for anything on your computer we should know about. And did you talk about this with anyone online? So that's a question. I mean, often we know that they ask questions that they wanted Brendan to respond yes to. So they were leading him to tell a story that they wanted. So sometimes I wonder if when they ask him, did you talk about this with anyone, if it's because they had evidence that someone did. Someone was using Brendan's account to talk about the crime. And they suspected, I mean, not inappropriately so, they suspected that Brendan, because it was from Brendan's account.
Right.
And I'm not sure when or if they would have realized that he was the one using the account. But I find those questions are interesting when they specifically ask. I mean, they just found out about all this terrible stuff on the computer.
Right.
When they asked Brendan, did you talk about this crime to someone? And another thing is that they ask is, did you guys take those photos of Teresa? Or did you guys take the photos of Teresa? Instead of asking, did you guys take any photos? They say, did you take the photo?
That's very specific.
Yeah, sometimes they misstate things during an interrogation.
Wow.
I know that's a stretch fact, but that could be taken as a bit of a Freudian slip almost. Is they're revealing the truth that there were photos, and they were asking Brendan, "Did you?"
That's very directed. That's very directed to me. That's talk about learning something new.
That's deliberate. What is that in? Is that which interview was that?
May 13th, and the page numbers for everything is down in the comment section. Sorry, the page numbers are there. So Casso 836. The links are down in the comment section.
Let's see it.
Oh wow, that is that's a big difference. There's a huge difference between saying a picture or any pictures and the pictures.
That's very interesting.
That's troubling to me, because again, those same people had investigated already rumors from around town about Teresa being pictures of her being restrained on a bed, and they determined that those rumors did not have credibility because the kid said he made it up.
That's a directed. Yeah, that's a directed question there. It's specific. Not a. Take some photos. This is very directed. Talking about learning something new. I completely missed it.
Same here. I've never heard that.
So that's kind of creepy. I always thought that was very creepy because, again, sometimes they ask Brendan questions that they expect him to reply yes to, questions that would help their case. And then they ask if Stephen was into Satan stuff and why he chose Halloween for the murder. I get because they knew there was images of torture and stuff on the computer. That's torture goes right along with Satan stuff.
Wow.
Well, that has always confused me and made me suspect that possibly they did find photos.
I think you're right.
And again, that maybe they didn't know because the images had been deleted and the metadata had been removed. They couldn't tell exactly when the photos were uploaded to the computer, but they knew that they were images that looked like Teresa. So they asked, did you take those photos of Teresa? And then Zellner even now is saying there's photos of women on the computer that bear a striking resemblance to Teresa.
Right.
An uncanny resemblance. So when you put all this stuff together, it's hard to ignore. And I think that this is the kind of stuff that Zellner was hoping to prove at a hearing, because if it's true that there's photos of Teresa on the computer and they were deleted, I don't think she could just state an emotion, we found photos of Teresa on the computer, because there's no factual support for that. And she called out Fassbender for doing that same thing. There's pictures of Teresa from a website. Fassbender identified them as being from after the murder. And Zellner said there's nothing to support that because the metadata has been stripped from these photos. So he's just making shit up. There's no way to tell when the photos were actually taken, when they were uploaded. But again, because the images apparently look like Teresa, that's what's motivating Zellner's repeated claim. She repeatedly says this over and over.
Right.
And I guess we'll switch just very quickly to the other Reddit post titled, "In November 2005, Avery's computer was seized. Nothing was found."
Yep,
In
got it.
April 2006, yeah, Dassey computer was seized. Child porn and torture porn was found, but nothing was done. And then in October 2006, long after, everything they've already discovered, they already had Avery's computer, found nothing. And then April 2006, they have the Dassey computer, suppress that evidence. And then for some fucking reason, in October 2006, Wiegert goes to seize Avery's camera and says he expects to find images of Teresa being subjected to violent sexual crimes. That affidavit, Jax, is at the very bottom of this post, or close to the bottom.
Yep.
Try to find the.
Let me get to it here.
October 6th, Avery's camera, but not Avery's bed, is the heading I have for that. So I found that super odd, because if they were going to search Avery's camera for images of Teresa being subjected to violent crimes, would they not have done that when they first searched his computer? Why would they search his computer but not his camera? And then again, when they found those images on Bobby's computer, why would they not then go and look for images of Teresa being subjected to violent crimes? I mean, they're asking Brendan, you take photos of Teresa, but they don't look at Avery's camera yet. I don't understand it. And I don't understand how they could wait so long unless there's some, various conspiracy going on here.
That's very directed again.
Yeah.
Wow.
That affidavit has always deeply troubled me because there's no reason that they should have been at that time, over a year, almost over a year after the murder actually happened, to go back and look at his camera for images of the crime.
Right.
It seems so counterintuitive to me.
It does. We're missing something. There's no doubt we're missing a chunk here. No doubt in my mind.
And then one other thing that kind of supports the theory that they maybe found images and were planning to do something with them before they decided not to. On July 9th, this is actually a bit above that. June 9th to July 3rd.
Got it.
So Kratz requests an order allowing the state to introduce evidence of Teresa's life, including photographs. And these photographs will be offered to prove that the defendant acted with the intent to kill Teresa Halbach. So what photographs would be offered to prove that Stephen Avery acted with the intent to kill Teresa Halbach? That would quite possibly be photos of her body showing very intentional mutilation or other crimes.
Torture.
Yeah, and interestingly, to support his request to the judge, Pratt cited the case of Hayes v. State. And then Buting read the motion and thought, what the fuck is Pratt doing? And instead of replying the motion back to Pratt, he actually sent a fax to the court. He said, Mr. Kratz has made an awkward request, and he cites Hayes v. State for the use of photographs. But Hayes v. State revolves the use of gruesome photographs of a victim's body, where a court ruled that, the jury has a right to see those photographs because it demonstrates the issues better than witnesses can. And so in the Hayes court, they said, yes, we will let the jury view images of the victim's body to support their case. And that's the case that Kratz cited for his request to introduce photos of Teresa that would prove the defendant acted with the intent to kill her.
Again, that's very directed.
Yeah. Over and over. I can't help but feel that all of this was due to them finding photos.
That's three things. With Brendan, with this, and the one right before, the looking at Avery's camera almost a year later. I mean, come on. Oh wow.
And what if any of this has to do with Kuss Road? I wonder.
Yeah.
Does anyone remember when Zellner first released? Actually, I don't think she released it, but I don't think the Elders actually did that before we did. Those videos, the video recreation that Zellner did about basically seeing if Bobby could catch up to Teresa before she reached.
Yeah, that was in. Yeah, that was in Man 2.
So there was, at the end of that video, whoever is recording, they go up into the, I don't know, the actress, I guess, I don't know what I should call her as, whoever is playing Teresa in the recreation. You know, they lay her down at the suspected burial site at Cross Road, and then whoever is recording this goes up to the body and stands over it in such a way, and then it freezes frame for about 3 seconds. That I found to be odd, because it's almost like Zellner was trying to say, this is a photo, not a video anymore. And she also says that there's photos of, she does say that there's photos of women being tortured that resemble Teresa, but she also says there's photos of dead or unconscious women that resemble Teresa. And of course, Teresa was, the actress, who was playing Teresa in the recreation, was wearing the same outfit that Teresa had, you know, button-down shirt, jeans, spring jacket. And so those are, because they were so focused on getting every single witness that met Teresa that day to identify her outfit. And it's possible that if they did, like the video suggests, the recreation suggests, they did knock her out or kill her, place her by the suspected burial site, and immediately take a photograph to satisfy their immediate need to document their crimes. That even though that these are relatively low quality images, you might have been able to tell that the person or the woman in the photograph was wearing a button-down shirt and jeans and a string jacket. Well, I wonder if that description of Teresa's wardrobe that day, which the state was pushing over and over, might be part of their downfall. Zellner can say, yeah, look, here's Teresa, here's a woman wearing a button-down shirt with jeans and a string jacket, and she appears to be knocked out or unconscious.
Interesting.
One other thing here I wanted to discuss very quickly.
Okay.
So it's about the handcuffs and the leg iron were seized from Stephen Avery's trailer and Barb's trailer. I've done a longer post on this, but here basically what I've included is that apparently Barb and Stephen went together to look for drinks at a it's called Intimate Treasures and Adult Gifts store. And it's first suggested to Barb that she was there with Stephen, and then Barb doesn't deny that. And another odd thing is that Barb claims to not exactly remember the kind of cuffs that bought that day. Very strange. I don't think that Barb and Stephen, I don't know, I know it's a strange family, but would they really be going shopping together for drinks that they're going to use?
Wasn't there someone?
They checked them cuffs for Mama Avery's DNA.
Well, not only that, but now isn't there a report that I just seemed like I just read recently? I should have jotted it down. That said that they went back to that store and talked to this. I don't know if it was the DCI or who, and they showed a picture of Stephen, and the girl said that wasn't the person that was with Barb. Where did I hear that?
We talked about that a couple days ago.
Okay.
I thought I remember that as well.
Yeah, so they did, although we didn't know about it until we got those DCI photos, because in the CASA report, they just ask Barb, did you buy these? Yeah, okay, that's pretty much it. They don't even take them at that point. So they wait until after Brendan's arrest to seize the handcuffs from Barb's trailer and leg irons. But eventually we learned that the DCI went to the store in question and asked a girl, first name is Dawn, whether she remembers two people, male and female, coming in on October 9th to buy the strings. She says, yes, I do. And she said, and they asked her, what did the female look like? And she says, She reminded me of a crack horse. That was something that I figured, wasn't an inappropriate descriptor for Barb's appearance at that time. And then they ask her, was she with the man from TV? And they don't use Stephen Avery's name, but that indicates to me that they were talking about Stephen Avery, because at that time he would have been all over the television because he had just been arrested. And she says, no, Barb was not with the man on the TV, but I didn't recognize who she was with. So she knows that it wasn't Stephen Avery that was with Barb getting those handcuffs, but she's not confident in say who it was. And there's no, of course, they don't grill her on this. They don't try to investigate the matter at all. They just kind of find out that it wasn't Stephen Avery, and that's the end of that.
Interesting. Okay. What about we do a pause here and see if there's questions, comments, and other. Susan or Linda, anyone got questions from we might address anything? Because I haven't been able to follow along in chat. So,
well, I know this whole thing about possible photos being out there is really intriguing now,
isn't it?
But then I have to come back to if Zellner had anything like that, why wouldn't we have already seen that in a motion? Why wouldn't we already know about them?
Yeah. I mean, she has told us that there are images of women that bear a striking resemblance to Teresa. I think that that's all she would be comfortable saying, because there'd be no way to know, really. It's not like she'd be holding a sign saying, I'm Teresa Halbach. I just think that that's exactly what it is that Zellner is not exactly positive, but he knows that they greatly resemble Teresa. And I have to imagine that Zellner's team has read all the search warrant files and everything, and probably Brendan's interviews too, and are aware of all of this repeated theme of images, depicting sexual sadism. I just think that it's possible that she was hinting at this, and that she was going to explore this theory at a hearing about those images. But again, it's a super valid point about whether we're talking about images of Teresa or Bobby speaking to Teresa but not via the phone. There's a bunch of questions, and it just comes down to, do we believe that Zellner included every single thing basically in her motion?
Yeah.
I have no problem believing that she would keep some stuff back, but it would be already alluded to in something she would have already talked about. So, if she can make the case that there was, say, for instance, that there was non-telephonic contact made with, Teresa on that day from the Dassey household, just as an example, she wouldn't necessarily have to go into great detail on what that was, because all she has to do is give enough information to cause the doubt for the court to then order a hearing. That's as far as she needs to go. It'd be smarter to give more detail, obviously, because the more you can strengthen your case, the better chance you have. But maybe she had more faith that what she was providing already was going to be enough. I don't know, but I have no problem believing she would keep some stuff back, just not something that important, I don't think.
Do you think that? I mean, would she say it if she didn't have conclusive proof? Because her claims have to be supported by some fact of record. So I'm wondering if what she was hoping was that, we do know from Making Murderer that she seemed to expect a hearing. She was going to be granted a hearing.
Yeah.
She seems very confident on that. So I just think that with that claim in particular, because she repeatedly said, and pretty much every motion she filed since we learned about the Dassey computer, that there was images of women who resembled Teresa. She got really specific at times, identifying 42 images. This is, again, I'm just saying I wish that we could have a hearing so that if something might come out like that it would. And if not, then we would know, if not, then we would know that's all she has. And she was just bringing that up to suggest that Bobby viewing images of women that look like Teresa would have contributed to a growing obsession with her.
Yeah, but the fact that it's coming from not only Zellner's side, but the police are alluding to the possibility of photograph. it's undeniable.
Yeah, to me, that's very directed.
We also have to look that she's trying not to. I mean, we all know that there's definite corruption and mishandling of evidence, but I think she's trying to give them an out without exposing all of it for everyone to see, to let Stephen out. Maybe she's waiting to do it in court so that the judge can make the ruling and contain it some, so it doesn't go all the way to the top. Because if they have images of her deceased and they have sat on them and have not investigated them, that's pretty powerful,
It's huge.
exculpatory evidence.
Right. Well, and remember, Zellner is definitely the type that likes those gotcha moments, like she did with the former judge in Ferguson's case when he got him on the stand and brought out the issue with the newspaper and how the newspaper tied into that witness. That was a gotcha moment. She likes that stuff. And when you're dealing with idiots like Colburn and Link and Kratz, those are awesome because now you can use that to tear them apart because they have no comeback for it.
Let's see that we've got several comments here.
A lot of people are finding this kind of mind-blowing new information and are saying that they're gonna have to re-listen to it to absorb it all. Lots of people.
Well, it is interesting that
and it's very intense. That was another comment. Yeah.
It is intense because I never picked up on this fact of what they said to Brendan because it's very directed. Alluding to potential photos of Teresa laying somewhere, hemmed up and tied up in a bed. I mean, my God.
Yeah.
Remember when there was a rumor floating around? Was it Fassbender that showed up to go through the PCR motion and was relieved that when he saw that something wasn't in there? Was it Fassbender?
Yeah, that was when KZ first filed her main brief. Whoever it was that went down to the courthouse and got it, heard Fassbender say that. He forget who he was talking to, but yeah, he alluded to the fact that he was relieved something wasn't in there. Yeah.
And so there's something, obviously there's something that is very damaging to the state's case that they're worried Zellner can get her hands on. And wouldn't it be, photographs of Teresa deceased in a location other than Stephen Avery's property would be pretty powerful evidence that
case
Stephen
over.
is responsible. Yeah.
Okay. Well, unless they, went with the unindicted co-conspirator again, which they most likely would try to do, but yeah, that's pretty huge, and I think that this is.
Well, come on, they've already made their case with the same person being murdered in two different locations. So I mean,
yeah, come on,
what's
right?
the harm in adding a third?
That's right. That's exactly right. Wow, really interesting, Temptedious. This is really new to me about the photos.
That one's an eye opener.
It is.
Does anyone think that the state was corrupt enough to try and plant photos on Avery's camera? That was my first thought, is that they seized the camera so long after the fact because they decided, we're going to try this. Because in the affidavit, they say, we expect to find images of sexual sadism because it's not unusual for perpetrators to retain electronic images of their crimes, either while the crime is being committed or after the completion of the crime. I really can't imagine that request was done in good faith. So what were they hoping to find? Or were they going to try and manipulate evidence? What does everyone think?
That is interesting. I think that that may have some potential. Absolutely.
I also had a question. What if your friend gave you a CD of porn and you put it on your computer? Would that account for the metadata not being there?
From my understanding, the metadata would be intact in that situation. It usually
Okay.
only gets stripped. I mean, I think you can change metadata nowadays easily.
Oh yeah, you can.
But it will get stripped if you delete the photo completely.
We know that they had the memory cards that they sent off, and supposedly nothing was retrieved from that. I wonder if they actually did retrieve photos.
Oh no,
And
one memory card did have photos, 4 photos from a prior shoot from the Averys.
because we don't know where her Hasselblad camera ended up. We don't know if it was with her that day. We're not for certain that the camera that supposedly got burned in Stephen Barrels is hers. I wonder if the camera she had wasn't used to photograph her and it was found, and perhaps they found photos on it and they were thinking about trying to link them to Avery's camera, and then someone like Trooper Austin, who has experience knowing that you can trace what camera takes pictures, kind of vetoed that idea.
I got another question. Was there ever a camera found in the Dassey residence? I've never heard one mentioned. Anyone?
I don't recall that being on an evidence ledger anywhere.
Nope, no cameras.
I don't recall him pulling one from anywhere on the property, right?
No.
During the searches.
If
None of
that's
the
what
lists.
that's a year later.
So,
Wow.
this other link that you sent to me, examining the results. Did you want me to open that one? In the belly seat?
We can.
Yeah, this is another post that Temptedious made. This was made November 14th, 2019.
I would scroll about halfway down till we get to Exhibit B, and that's when I started reviewing the file names and file paths that were returned by Fassbender search, Belly search of Fasbender's request.
Exhibit B, body. Okay, Exhibit B, Part 1. Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of terms that they were looking for, including body, bondage, bullet, DNA, fire, gas, gun, journal, MySpace, news, and RAV. So for the vast majority of those searches, those were not searches done by Bobby. These were searches that were done of the hard drive. So Fassbender said, I want you to search the registry for these terms and tell me what files you get returned. So there's plenty of innocuous or harmless files that are nothing, especially for the term body, because apparently body is a frequent term that will come up in the code of websites. However, there was a few deleted files that were returned due to the search of the term body. And they are terms that never come up in the searches. So there's one for double fisting, that never came up in the previous post. Sarah Reed robbed, that never came up. And then as we move farther down, there's not too many more with the body. As we move farther down, there's more images for teenagers, a bunch of deleted stuff. And then for gas, on page 58 of part 2 of Exhibit B, for some reason, when Belly searched the computer for the term gas, it returned a deleted file titled Saw2. I haven't seen, I think I actually have seen it, but it's been so long, I don't remember if gasoline was used in that movie as a method of torture. I cannot remember. I have no idea why that file name was returned from that search of gas. I don't know. The one thing that really caught my eye was the search for beating skulls and double fisting. Those are terms, beating skulls specifically is a term that never showed up anywhere. And that's a sadistic search. And this seems to suggest that there was a lot of deletions going on.
Right.
And that what was deleted was probably even worse than what we see.
Interesting.
And then one other thing that I will say about this post, and then I think I can pretty much wrap it up. Among those terms that I read off, the body, blood, bondage, bullet, then DNA, all those terms, for some reason they didn't ask Ellie to search the computer for Teresa's name, or Teresa's email, or Teresa's website. I'm pretty sure she had a website.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah. And I think that should have been first thing that they should have done was, hey, you can search for all this stuff too, but please also search for Teresa Halbach. Her name, or even Stephen Avery's name, they could have searched for. Did not.
Well, that's because at no time during this investigation did they ever seem to begin a search for Teresa Halbach.
True. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it with that post. I mean, I talk about at the very end the folders that were found more recently, titled Miss Halbach DNA, or Halbach DNA and Teresa.
Yeah.
Zellner has no idea what was in those folders. He claims that they were authored at a time they were created at a time when only Bobby was home alone. So she does know some stuff about them. Don't believe that she knows about the content.
Now, it's true now, correct me if I'm wrong, but after the state took the computer the second time and did whatever, KZ does not have the results of what they did or any kind of report from that, correct?
No, she tried asking for it and they won't give it to her.
That's interesting.
And then again, she believes Zellner has suggested that the state deleted a whole bunch of crap basically when they had the computer for that 144 days or whatever it was.
Right.
There are so many missing images, like everything. She included a little snippet of what percentage of files were missing compared to her previous examination. And yeah, it does seem to suggest that someone did a very thorough and clean wipe of the computer. And so now, even though Zellner he had it, even though Barb provided the computer to her, I think it was pretty much useless at that point. And I think that's the only reason that Barb did turn it over, is because she had a suspicion that it would just be useless at that point, because everything had been deleted, literally everything.
Yeah, I think that I think it's interesting that they would have had to kept it that long just to go back and do. They could have actually ghosted the thing. This November 17th, 2017, I think it's 17th, the November 2017 interview that they had with Scott and Barb that they recorded, that everyone's heard. Clearly, their intent was to get that computer because he came prepared with all the paperwork, right?
Yeah.
So I think they could have easily have brought whatever and ghosted that hard drive right there and taken it. Instead, they take the entire machine or whatever, and kept it that long. For what reason would they need to do that?
And remember, they had a forensic image. So if they were concerned about the information that Zellner was presenting, they could have had a new expert, or probably Valley again, examine the forensic image with new technology, just like Zellner did. But because they seized the computer, it seems they were interested about what might be found on the computer after it was returned to them, for the date of return, right? Because they don't know what was on the computer after that point. So I think they seized it. Basically, the state now has, I'm sure, almost a decade worth. I mean, I don't know how long they were using the computer. Maybe only used it for 5 more years. But they have more information than Zellner does for sure, and they're not giving it.
And that is interesting too, that they won't turn over the results from the second testing. So,
and there's no legal reason for them not to turn it over, right? It is hers by law. It should be given to her, correct?
I would agree, just because the state gave her the first one. They gave her the results from their first examination. So that seems to suggest that they acknowledge that she has a right to that material. Why would she not also have a right to the second examination?
I agree.
I can't believe Barb still had the computer all these years later. I mean, I've gone through like 6 or 10 computers and they were up into us long ago. In that amount of time.
I think it's interesting that they kept it. Not taking a Earth magnet and put on that hard drive and drilled about 50 holes in it and got rid of it.
It is
Yeah.
odd that she kept it. It makes you wonder why is she just a pack rat? I mean, her house kind of did look pack ratish, but it is odd to me that she kept something that she knew contained stuff that could get her kids in trouble.
Well, we've kind of danced all the way around this a little bit, I guess, but we've talked about it before. I don't want to alter the subject too much. However, I brought up DCI Report 304, and this was from Fassbender. And if you look at the date here, that he filed this on 12/7/2006. However, if you look at the current date, it was 4/21/2006, which is the date they seized the computer. The thing is that I guess one of my biggest problems here is that with everything that we know that Fassbender, along with any other investigator, that would be Veli, and I'm sure Kratz got a copy of this hard drive, there was no reaction to it. It was just like they were listing off a grocery list. However, there had to be some questions that had to be into these cops' minds, like, what the hell have we run into here with this computer of these searches and all these images that we found? Hey, look, I'm not saying anyone broke the law. I'm just saying that, we're talking about here 15 years later, but then it was fresh. It had some of the stuff had just happened and nothing was done. There were no questions. Why?
Yeah, and to support that further, there are multiple felonies on that computer. Multiple. Probably, well, I don't want to say in the hundreds, but there are a large volume of felonies on that computer,
Dozens.
all involving child pornography.
Dozens.
Discovered by investigators who worked in child internet pornography and child pornography.
Specifically, Fassbender.
Right. And when it comes to crimes against children, I think I've mentioned this before, the reporting issue is not an option. It's a thou shalt report, that you don't have a choice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that nothing was really done at all. No casework opened, nothing at all. So anyway, let's open it up here to, any comments.
I say they threw Barb in jail for a little bit of weed, all these felonies on a computer, but nothing.
Well, I mean, I know that this it seems like, oh, well, we're just attacking Bobby. The thing is that my goal has always been the truth. What is the truth? What is it? Where are we heading off here into what we don't know? And it forces us to want to speculate because we've been in it for so long. Many of us have. We want to know the rest of these answers, and we can't. We're all right at the edge, and we can't get that last little bit. That's what it feels like to me in a lot of this. It's like the FOIA that I'm fighting right now. It's actually two of them. There are phone calls that there's absolutely no reason we shouldn't be able to get. What's on these CDs that they don't want us to hear? Many people have tried to get them.
What's on that Bobby Dassey interview that they don't want us to see?
Agree. Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Question from Crockett to Temptedious. So you think Barb knew all was cleaned by law enforcement, hence her being on for KZ being given hard drive by her, meaning Barb?
I think that just because, again, when we look at how panicked Barb was when they seized the computer, she did not want them to take it. And then eventually she realized that nothing was going to come out. And so she knew that they suppressed evidence on the computer back in 2006. So although I don't know for sure, because we know that Zollner was trying to get her hands on the computer, but Barb wouldn't turn it over until she got it back from the state, who imprisoned her son. Something says to me that, yes, Barb knew that handing it over to Zellner, however she knew it, I don't know, but Barb knew that nothing was going to come of it because the computer had been totally wiped.
Okay, and Bethany is, I wonder if the guy they said spoke to Teresa on Messenger was Bobby. They never put the guy's real name in the report, just his username.
That's a good question. I can't think of the guy's name.
Yeah, I thought Jinx said his name at some point during this discussion, but
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did. I can't remember the guy's name, but allegedly he spoke to her like the night before or something like that nature, like the night of October 30th. I can't remember his name. You would have thought that at minimum that there would have been more of an investigation to, look into his computer or whatever device.
Yeah, well, there's a wee bit of similarity with the Luke case with that instance, Jack, because over here it's illegal to smoke cannabis and stuff like that, or hash, and in Luke's case, they a couple of them were proven to be selling it to the people that are involved in the case and everything like that, but they never got in. Nothing got done to them because they made it as if it was Luke that was selling it and spreading it. If it hadn't been anything to do with a murder case, they two people would have been done with possession and the intent to supply. But they didn't. They had nothing done to them, and they even admitted it in statements that they bought it and sold it to the people that were involved. But they twisted it and they put it on Luke and said that Luke was a massive drug dealer and everything like that, which was a load of bollocks, you know what I mean? So the cops and that are quite good at twisting things like that to their narrative.
Sure. Well, go ahead. So
have you done any look into the Vivid report onto Teresa's computer? Have you analyzed it like you've done the Dassey computer?
No, I haven't. I know very little about Teresa's computer. I looked at Avery's computer report more than Teresa's, to be honest. And Kratz's.
Oh yeah, we got some result from Kratz's computer, which was basically wiped, as I recall. But there were a few things left over that didn't get wiped out completely.
He had bookmarked a photo of Stephen Avery.
Yep. Yeah, there were some other interesting tidbits, as I recall. Okay.
I think it's clear that, if nothing else, investigators knew that there was things found on the Dassey computer, and instead of trying to investigate them to see if they were related to what happened to Teresa, even though they were making the motive and trying to find this in Stephen, and even though they charged Brendan, they just ignored. They buried it because it didn't help them get their case.
Yep. Let's see. We have another question here from it's on up in the chat from Jay Forkham. Whatever happened to freedom of information? Well, the Freedom of Information Act, I've talked about it numerous times. I don't want to go off into repeating myself too much to people that have heard me talk about it. And my irritation with how it's written, the Freedom of Information, the Open Records Request Law for Wisconsin basically says that you can request whatever and you can have it. Along with that, are reasons that we can deny you getting it. And that's where the wordplay comes along. I call it word salad sometimes because that's really what it comes down to, is that they've decided because of X, Y, and Z between, the DOJ, Department of Justice, and police that are, in control of evidence. You have to remember, at least in Wisconsin, I don't know about other states, it's probably the same way, but the county sheriff has control of what gets released. If he says no, that's the final word. Now, you can appeal that decision, but that's a long process, and you generally are going to have a lawyer represent you. Now, you can file a mandamus appeal, which we know that Henbury has done one of those, but it's been over a year and he still has nothing. So it's really kind of hypocritical in much of this. I mean, we've gotten quite a bit of things. There are a lot of things that people have gotten out of their own pocket over the last 5.5 years. We're coming up on 6 years now. That's been released that was not part of the documentary, that have clearly opened our eyes to a much larger case. But the open records request, as it's written for Wisconsin, is great. It's absolutely great. Where you run into trouble is what they don't want to release for whatever reason. So,
now that you've just said that, Clyde Goolage in the chat says, "Hello everybody, why have none of you taken up Ripper Jack's offer of him getting that guy he knows who sued the police was from, and he got what he wanted? He also stated he would get a journalist."
Well, number one, I've not been made that offer, and I'm certainly open to it. I'm open to anything, whatever it takes to get the records. I don't care who gets them, as long as we can get them.
Yeah.
I'm more than willing, whatever it takes. If they want my information, I'm glad to get with Ripper and make that happen. If he can get with whoever, let's do it. That's my statement.
Yeah, but just like we mentioned the Bobby Dassey interview, there's some things you're not going to be able to get around because they're just going to give you some kind of bullshit excuse why they're not giving it up, and it's going to take actual legal action in a courtroom to get them to release it. Just like with insurance companies being able to just deny, they're hoping you're going to give up because they're making the process too tough. Most people will just give up and stop asking. So that's what they'll do. They probably understand that none of us are have the ability to afford or get a lawyer to go after them from a legal standpoint. So they'll just say, we don't want to break the seal. So have a nice day.
Or like the search, the me wanting the FOIAs and the open records request and results that I sent to same time I sent to Calumet County, which I got over 1,000 pages for nothing. It didn't cost me a penny for the last 5.5 years. I sent the same request to Manitowoc, and they want to charge me $5,000 for a search. Yeah. If that's not a chilling effect, I don't know what is.
Exactly. We're gonna deny you without denying you.
Exactly. So.
Well, and if you pay them the $5,000, who knows? They might hand you 3 pieces of paper, right?
It may be. Because it also included his provision that it may end up costing more, and until you pay that, I'm going to let you have it, even if you do pay the $5,000 up front. So, there is a provision in the open records request guidelines that says that these custodians are not supposed to send replies like that, a chilling effect that would deter someone from obtaining records. So it's really hypocritical in reading what they're supposed to do and in the results of what they're actually doing to various people. I'm just one. There's been, going through these open records requests that I did get from Calumet, there have been literally dozens of requests. I say dozens. There have been probably at least a dozen that I can think of right off the top of my head for the a number of these phone calls that we can't get from Jody between October 28th, 2005 until December 6th, 2005. A number of requests have approached that, denied. Same for the Bobby Dassey November 9th audio interview, denied. The only one that I know of for sure that's gotten it is KZ, and then I think that she let Farak, yeah, he got to listen to some of it. So anyway, more questions, comments. This has been a really, really interesting open mic. I want to really thank Temptedious for taking the time to, get this out there in a succinct way that people can understand it and understand his thought process behind doing it. His posts are so detailed. Many of us are huge fans of his work, and always look forward to whatever he's got, because we know he's dove into it the best he can, and he always corrects it. If he's wrong, if he finds a mistake or whatever, he always corrects it. So
the interview for Bobby Dassey that is being withheld, is that the November 9th interview?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, I did read. There is a little bit of it included in Ferrick's book, and I just read it this morning just to see. The only thing that stuck out in my mind is that he, Dietering, asked Bobby an odd question about his shoe prints being found by the burn pit, and please don't tell me that your prints are going to be found by that burn pit, because I'll be so disappointed in you if they're found by that burn pit, blah, 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 blah. But I don't think they ever collected foot impressions, or if they did, I don't remember reading about them anywhere.
Their phone calls, and I can't say that I listened to them recently, but there was a discussion here in Discord, I don't know, probably within the last couple of weeks, about, I think Dolores made mention of this a couple of times, that they were really hard on Bobby in that November 9th interview. But wasn't that right, BB? Did you remember that discussion we had?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Yeah, it's been said numerous times that was a really tough interview.
And
yeah, Bart said the same thing.
Although it's not linked in this YouTube section, I did do a post a long time ago called "Through a Journey to the Past Through the Internet" or something like that, and I quoted a few comments from a blog back from 2005, and one of them says that Avery's nephew was questioned by police today, I'm assuming November 9th, and that they were grilling him and telling him they know where the body is, or he knows where the body is, and they need to tell him, and that the mother, Barb, was very upset about this. And they kept on going on, and I included it. I didn't know that, I had no idea that people were saying the November 9th interview was intense for Bobby. But I should find that quote again and see more specifically what they say, because it seems like maybe that was accurate.
It's mentioned in at least 3 calls, as I recall.
There were Dolores, and do you remember, was it just Dolores that made commentary about this, Susan?
No, Barb also said it.
Yeah,
Moritz
and Barb both, I believe, made the reference to that.
Yeah.
Well, Seeking Truth also got the Barb interview. I mean, it's really terrible. It's a really horrendously sounding recording of the November 9th. They were on their way to the Aurora Medical Center, if everyone recalls. And if you remember, during that interview, she got on the phone with Bobby and told him he had to come down there. And there was some difficulty there in getting that done. But I guess he did show up. But that recording in itself is interesting. I've talked a little bit with Sunshine about it. It's a really horrible recording, but was it Old Dog that's done the transcript of that? Is that right, Sunshine?
Yeah, Old Dog
Yes.
transcript of it, and
He cleaned the sound up a lot first. He cleaned the sound up a lot first,
Yeah.
and then he transcribed it.
It's very non-Rogers-like.
And it's in Case Talk, and it's mentioned.
Yeah.
You can
And that
tell
one was
by
so
their
far
question-
overthrown. Like, what?
You can tell by their questioning of Barb that the way it reads to me is that they are looking at Bobby as the co-defendant at that point in time. So if you take that in connection to the interview of Bobby that we now know he was pressured. And remember, didn't Zellner specifically ask him if he was pressured? And he said, no, he wasn't. Right? Doesn't she mention that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of odd too, that he won't even acknowledge the pressure that was put on them when we know that all the other family members have said repeatedly that investigators pressured them. Radant has said that investigators pressured him to change his statement.
Oh, yeah.
So it's odd that Bobby was specifically denied that. So it makes you wonder what all wasn't put in the officer's version of the interview. The other interview we don't have an audio of, whether if there's anything on it or not, is Dolores's interview as well.
That's right. We can't get that either. And I found that a little surprising that I just can't imagine what's in that they won't release.
Well, that came back in 2007 with the Dassey CDs, right? After the trials. After the trials, Tom Fassbender gave back the CDs of the Dolores interview and also basically the Dassey CD of the computer.
Oh, the Bailey CD.
Yeah, and the Dolores interview.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing that they ended up they ended up in evidence after the trials were complete.
Yeah, why does the Dolores interview come back after the trials? I don't understand that.
I have a theory on that. Either there's something on there, either they're harassing an elderly woman and they look like assholes, or she confirms Stephen had dinner at her house. They were probably really glad that Buting and Strain didn't notice that it was they didn't turn it. It wasn't available in the evidence room to get a hold of. But I would love to hear Dolores's interview.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the main thing is she was her Stephen's alibi in terms of her visiting on her golf cart. You know that part? She went on the golf cart to the Stephen's house and bringing the mail and stuff and talking to Stephen. In the meantime, when Teresa would have been there in the trailer shouting out for help if she was able to.
Yeah,
right.
or being it depends on which theory of the crime we go with in Kratz's trials. But yeah, she was definitely there at a key point of time. And if she mentioned that and they didn't note that, because they just say that she refused to be interviewed? Isn't that what the paper version says?
I think she was interviewed in a DCI report somewhere, but the transcription of it or the audio file of it wasn't brought back until after the trial. So
okay,
which really kind of brings up this Barb and Scott interview. It really kind of brings to my mind what other interviews were recorded that we really have no idea. I think there are a number of others. I really kind of find it surprising, and I would find it surprising that Scott's November 10th and November 29th, 2005 interviews wouldn't be recorded. Now, we have no proof there was a recording of it, but
I think all the juvenile interviews were recorded as well.
Yeah. Well, the DCI, they seem to be pretty much every interview they conducted, they seem to have a recorder going for a good port. I mean, I'm not talking about, there are a number of DCI reports you can read that they did a canvas. And, I can understand if they didn't record those. I get that. But these sit-down interviews with, people that were really connected. Like Scott, he gave a statement on November 10th, and he gave another one 19 days later. I would be really, really surprised if those weren't recorded, and we don't have any ledgers for the DCI to amount to anything. So, another thing that I'll mention here that we don't have, that it seems to have existed in some way, is the zipper voicemail. Pardon me, I got a frog in my throat.
Yeah, that zipper voicemail. Oh, go ahead, Jax.
Well, to finish up, the information that yours got in that open records request that he did, it had that prosecutor's file, and it clearly showed the zipper voicemail is seized right along with the Janda voicemail, and that was in November of 2007, or I'm sorry, January of 2007, right before trial. So where the hell is this recording at?
Chief Holcomb is asking about Brendan and Blaine. Did they get home until after 5 p.m.?
On October 31st, they got home at 3:45, like always, according to what we know. I mean, that's the story I got. They got off the bus at 3:45 and, basically walked home like they always do. They were talking about he's going to be on the phone, he's going to get on the computer, blah, blah, blah. Blaine gets on the phone to talk to his friends about going, I guess, trick-or-treating. Brendan gets on and starts playing video games. That's what I recall.
How long do you think it takes them to walk from the bus stop to their home? Like 10 or 15 minutes?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I would imagine, well, maybe 10 minutes.
Did Linda no do it, and it only took her about 7 minutes or something like that?
It doesn't take very long. It's like
quarter of a mile.
Less than a city block.
Yeah, it's like quarter of a mile. It's not that far. I mean, it's, considering it's a driveway, but it's, basically, walk down the road and you're there. I think they get dropped off there near the mailboxes, if I'm correct. And then, they basically walk from there down to the trailer. So
yeah, I've never been there. So, you don't, it's hard to.
Linda's been there.
It's really good in that video that Zellner did, that recreation video. It shows the link to what you could see, how far you could see.
That reminds me, and I should have included it. I didn't. Henbury got an exit video of what's the officer's name? Come on, somebody help me here. The exit video that was taken on November 12th, 2005. Anyway, the video is posted here on YouTube, and I'll actually include that link. It shows the inside of. He's walking around the property, basically, I guess, before they're getting ready to clear out.
Yeah, that's Bill Tyson doing that.
Thank you. The Tyson exit video.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll link that. I'll put that in the description as well. It shows the inside of the Dassey trailer, and it shows the computer in Bobby's room. It's a relatively quick glance, but it's there. I mean, it's not like you can see it. So I'll include that as well. Because the questions come up. It's like, hey, we're accusing Bobby of all this stuff. Hey, we're only presenting what we know. There may be nothing more there, but there's some. I mean, to me, there's some questionable things, and we have to. If we don't look at it the way it is, we're being hypocritical. We have to question all sides of it, of course. But this is some really, really interesting information. I'm going to have to. Thanks, Temptedious. You're going to make me dive off into another rabbit hole here. I'm really curious now about these connections of them, these directed questions that they said to Brenton. That's crazy.
This whole idea with the photos now, that's we need to flesh this out, because that opens up quite a few possibilities that could put some of these pieces in place.
Absolutely.
Jay Bokum says Brenda doesn't have an alibi between 3:45 and 5 o'clock. because Blaine had eyes in the video game. I don't think that's true, right? Wasn't it
Well,
No,
Brendan playing the
Brendan was
video
playing
games?
video games. Yeah,
And
Brendan was playing video games with him, BB. You're right. Until about 7 o'clock, was it? No, because that's when he
well,
got the
and
phone call for Stephen.
Blaine was also using the phone at times there in the house, and like talking to his boss and like his friend's mom or his friend about going trick or treating, and so Brendan does have an alibi.
well,
And
he's got
for God's sakes, if Teresa was tied up screaming over, let me tell you, I know some things about living in trailers. I know some things about living in old trailers. And if she was next door, as close as those trailers are, screaming bloody murder, you would be able to hear it in
Yeah.
Barb's trailer.
absolutely no
You
doubt
can
about
hear
it.
kids run down the hallway from 2 and 3 trailers away. Okay? You can hear little kids' footsteps going boom, 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 running down the hallways.
So you're basically saying the walls aren't that thick.
Right. So yeah, he does have pretty much an alibi. You know.
Yeah.
Well, and we know it's a good alibi anyway because we know none of that stuff happened in the bedroom like they said in the first place.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Because there's nothing to support it.
Nothing.
No,
Nothing.
not a thing.
Not even a hair.
No.
So if that's what you're implying, yeah, sorry, but
In either home, in the Dassey home or or Stephen's trailer.
right, vice
We
versa.
have exit videos of the property where they go through each house, and it's clear that no bloody crime scene or no woman was restrained there.
Well,
the only place there's blood is in the Dassey garage, and that's supposed to be tear blood, right?
you know, this brings up a point. Everybody has differing opinions about, you know, what happened. You know, and the best that, you know, for myself that I can do is based on what we've been told. I can't prove a lot of these facts. None of us can. We just have to take it for what it is and go from there. You know, if Jay Forkham wants to believe something else, I mean, to me, that's on him. If it's his belief, hey, more power to him. Don't make me try to believe it. But if that's what he wants to believe, then I'm okay with that. Right?
Yeah, none of my business, right?
That's right. Not my monkey, not my circus.
No.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a theory, support it. You know, where's the documents? Where's something that will boost your story? You know, like I just said, that we know nothing happened in the bedroom. We know that because none of the evidence supports it. There are no marks on the bed posts that says there was ever any kind of handcuff or shackle or anything on them.
Or rope.
Right. There's not a single drop of blood in a place where somebody's throat was cut, where somebody was stabbed in the stomach, you know, where this violent activity took place, not a drop of blood.
There's no holes in the hallway from them bringing her out the bedroom through the trailer and her fighting for her life to get away from them. There's nothing.
The
house
the cops were sitting on the bed. The cop was sitting on the bed, filling out paperwork.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing there, nothing at all. So yeah, I agree. You need to have some kind of supporting something that would give you and make an informed decision. If you're going to take that leap, you got to have something. To just say it without anything there, it's hard for me to follow along with that. So, okay. Is there any more questions, comments, concerns before we? This has been a great discussion. I mean, I could probably keep talking about this for hours because I'm loath about the things that we don't have. You know, this. I guess I started thinking about this zipper voicemail a few minutes ago. We were talking about things we don't have. You know, to me, that voicemail, if they had it and it supported what they said, we'd still be hearing it today. They'd just play it, you know, if we question anything, they'd just play that voicemail. See, we were right. See, to me, that tells me that there was something on it that doesn't support their theory. So, any more comments, questions? trying to read through the chat here to see if there's anything that we've missed. Anybody wants to cover? Anybody here in the chat? I'm open for talking about it as long as you guys want. I'm going to contact Ripper per the person in the mentioned in the comments, because if he's got somebody that can get this information, I'm game. It doesn't have to be me that gets it. It can be anyone. I don't care. It's not a sporting event for me. It's the truth. You all good? Anything? Evie, you see any more comments or anything
Nothing
from the
pressing? Yeah, nothing pressing. Bethany did want to know, wasn't the bid plate sitting on the dash in the RAV4 and a picture of that way, as well as put in a report that it had been tampered with? Yeah, there is a report that says.
Yeah, Remaker said that.
Yeah.
That was in Remaker's report. And it is surprising, there's no clear definitive photo of that VIN plate. That is irritating. I don't know what it means. I don't want to go too far off in it. I'm a one RAV person. I know other people believe there's two RAVs, but I'm a one RAV guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always little stuff on this case that does that. For instance, Ertl and his statement about the fire pit, his reasoning for why he didn't take any pictures of it because it had already been altered. Stuff like that jumps out. Just like this, Temp just brought up about the Brendan interview and the verbiage they use in the questions. It's like, God, how do we miss this?
Right. I missed it completely. I've read it a number of times.
So did I.
It's never jumped out at me. That's shocking to me. It tells me that there's photos. I can't.
Photos there, right?
Yeah, photos that they've gotten that they have from somewhere that's directed them to, or there's Teresa or someone laying in a bed restrained. And I'm going to guess Teresa, the way that this is coming across. So.
Stuart Hodson said, it's the cops' verbiage, Teresa west of Avery's. I think that's on one of those, like roll the ambulance down here, one of those calls.
Oh, yeah, that was on Cuss Road.
Yeah.
Yeah. They asked if
Teresa was west of Avery's.
Well,
yeah, and that's why this whole photo thing is intriguing me, because they kind of allude to the fact that they possibly have pictures of her restrained on a bed, but then also almost allude to the fact that they've got pictures of her dead, her in a burial position of some kind. If that burial position is Cuss Road, wow.
Yeah. Well, we know those photos from Cuss Road that we still haven't been able to get. We can't get them. They've been denied for a number of reasons. We'll detail what photos, what's in these photos. Well, if I knew that, I probably wouldn't need the photos.
Right.
So I know that somebody, I think that Henbury showed me a reply that he got that said that they wanted to know, please detail what's in these photos. How do you reply to
that? The FOIA law does not dictate that I have to tell you what's in the photos. You just have to supply the photos related to the location I'm requesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, above Cuss Road.
Doesn't work like that. They just deny it. Be more specific.
Nosy's asking what photos. I don't think Nosy was in at the time we were talking about the photos of that.
She's going to have to rewatch this one.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, the presentation from Temptedious is there are questions that the police were pressing Brendan on, basically indicating that they had photos of Teresa dead in a bed in one of the interviews that they put to him. And then there's a couple of other things that I'll show you. There'll be they're in a couple of other two other posts that Temptedious has made that also directs us to think that they have access to photos that we've never seen before of Teresa dead. So I'll show them to you. I'll show it to you. And, you know, just so everyone knows, we've probably got less than half the photos in the case. So.
Oh yeah, definitely less than half. Definitely.
Okay. Any other comments, questions before we move on out?
No.
Are we good?
No, we're pretty good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know Temptedious said he had to jet about around 6:30. I'm not sure if he's here or not. Want to thank him specifically for agreeing to come along and get this presented. And there's other posts and so forth that he's done that are excellent as well. Maybe we'll tackle another one of those soon, because this has been
thank you, Mr. Tedious.
This has been a really interesting discussion. I'll certainly learn from it, and I've been in this for a long time, and man, blow me away. Want to thank everyone that's come along and live chat and asked questions and been part of the continuing this moving forward. And everybody, being a part of the open mic and what it really is, which is exactly what we've done today. Basically give Temptedious the mic and let him discuss it and discuss his thoughts and how he got there. So if there's nothing else, I'll say thanks again, and until next time, it's been a Foul Play production.